Welcome back to American Adventure Lab. On today's episode, I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about the 2.5-inch suspension lift from Icon Vehicle Dynamics. Near the end of the video, I'm going to talk about some things I don't like about the lift, but I want to make sure that you guys take those things with a grain of salt, because overall, this lift kit has been absolutely transformative to the way we use this vehicle. As expected, it does amazing off-road, but the on-road manners are the key. And that's solely due to the geometry and the attention to detail that Icon has put into this kit. So don't let those things leave you wondering about the lift. It has been awesome for us, and I would highly recommend it. So here's the rest. All right, confessional time. I know a lot of you have noticed that episode 5 is sort of missing from the video lineup here. I know that you've noticed that because I've gotten several messages from you guys asking where it was at. I'm glad you noticed. Unfortunately, I have a little bit of a confession as to why that didn't happen. I did shoot episode 5. I shot it right after I put the lift kit on the Jeep. But unfortunately, through some of that interview, I failed to turn the microphone on. Yeah, lesson learned. But since then, I bought a fancy new Pro mic that comes on when the camera comes on, so it's fairly dummy proof for that. That worked out pretty well. Pretty happy with the new mic. I'll put a link to it below in case any of you guys are interested. That being said, that's why episode 5 wasn't there originally. Since then, you can tell there's been a sort of a break or delay in me releasing some videos. There's a good reason for that as well. My family and I have actually moved to southwestern Utah. And we did that, a lot of the reason, because we're closer to the outdoors out here. The scenery is amazing. The off-road stuff is amazing. The mountain biking, the road biking is amazing. Running, sports, lakes everywhere, mountains within 30 minutes of where we're at. We're in Hurricane, Utah. Hurricane for the locals, hurricane for everybody else. So we're there now and we love it. We're sort of getting settled in. Now I plan on starting to release some of the footage that we've shot in the last 2 months. We've got wheeling footage from all over the Midwest, Southwest, Moab, Breckenridge, Steamboat, Hurricane, places all over. So tons of good footage. Actually, I shot 2 terabytes of video, so it's gonna take me a little while to sift through that and get everything cut up, but the Jeep JL has been absolutely amazing. You know, now that all that's out of the way, I kind of get back to what you guys came here for, and that's the review of the 2.5-inch suspension lift, stage 2 from Icon Vehicle Dynamics. One thing that I think is really important to point out about the Icon lift is the installation is really simple. I think anybody could do this at home. All you need is a floor jack, a good set of jack stands, some hand tools, and a keen eye for following the directions as they are typed out on the page. The directions are really detailed. They've got good photos with them, and it took me about an afternoon to install the lift. So I did make a video for that. So if you guys are interested, make sure you click the link below to watch our Icon full installation video. It's the entire process from start to finish, and hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, so after installing the Icon lift, I rode around town for a handful of miles and then whipped into a local 4-wheel parts store for an alignment. So this kit, being a stage 2 kit, adds a lower control arms which rotate that axle back within stock spec. So I expected the lift kit to be pretty well aligned right out of the box, and not to my surprise it was. If memory serves right, I think one of the adjustments was out like 0.18 degrees or something minimal like that. So they made a quick adjustment to get that thing back into spec, and I was back on the roads. If you guys do anything to the suspension, make sure you go and get an alignment done for safety reasons and drivability reasons, but also for tire wear. These tires are expensive, so you don't want to wear them out any sooner than you have to. Let's just get this out of the way first. I completely expected the JL to handle the trail very well after the lift. It has tried and true Dana 44 axles, 37-inch tires, a great low-range transfer case, and it didn't let me down in any way. It performed exactly as I expected and hoped it would. On the trails, this thing feels like a luxury rock crawler. The transmission is amazing. Well, mostly. I'll talk some more about that in a future video. The cooling system is up to the task, and the new sound system makes you forget you're in a Wrangler. All in all, the new JL is a huge step up in comfort off-road. Icon suggests using a taller bump stop if you're running 37-inch tires with this lift, but the spacer hadn't come by the time we left for our trip, so all the wheeling that we did was with the small spacer. So knowing that was in there, I completely expected there to be some rubbing with the extra articulation allowed without the taller spacer in it. But to my surprise, there was just a very small amount of rubbing on the passenger side rock slider on the front. So the front tire was rubbing the rock slider a little bit. And absolutely it's fixable with a flap disc and maybe a cutoff wheel. But it was so minimal that I'm not even gonna do anything about it. At some point soon, I'll replace the factory rock sliders and they'll take care of itself. But it performed absolutely great on the trail, even with the shorter spacer in it. However, there was one place that I was really surprised by the lift, and that was on the street. To my surprise, the Jeep drives absolutely great on the street, even at highway speeds. Granted, these are big 37-inch tires and they're heavy, and the Jeep JL will definitely drive different with 37s on it than it did with the stock 33s, but the trade-off is definitely worth it. This thing has become my daily driver and I absolutely love driving it. I look forward to driving it probably more than I would care to admit every time I get in it. So the road manners was the absolute biggest surprise of this thing. And everybody knows the JL drives better than the JK did before it, but I expected some of that to go away with the lift and the bigger tires, and it did to some extent, but there's always a but. And so this time the but is there are just some drawbacks to going to 37-inch tires. If you've done 37s before in a Jeep, then you understand some of that. The JK was not great with 37s, mostly because of the transmission and the horsepower output. The later models did better, but the 8-speed transmission on the JL does help significantly with that. But it's not perfect. Even the Rubicon JL with the 410s, at highway speed, I get very little use out of 8th gear in the transmission. At best, you'll run in 7th. Most of the time, you'll flop between 6 and 7 depending on the load. And that's definitely drivable, but this Jeep will get 488s in a near episode. So make sure you click subscribe if you want to see that when it comes out. And the other drawback of going with the lift and 37-inch tires is you raise the height of the vehicle. If you've had a Wrangler, you know that these things are not the most aerodynamic vehicle on the street. Raising that up, 6 inches or so by the time you do lift and tire height, that just makes that even worse. Living in Hurricane, Utah, we see a lot of high-speed wind. They don't call it hurricane for no reason. The wind is crazy here. Big gusts of wind wreak havoc on the JL. Not to the point of being unsafe, but definitely to the point where you need to be ready for it. This has nothing to do with the Icon lift, but it's something that you should definitely be ready for if you're going to do the same lift and tire size that I did on this Jeep. To give a 100% honest review of the Icon lift, there are a couple of issues that I would like to point out. Issue number one is the nut certs on the lower control arm. I would like to see that improved a little bit. I got a little bit ahead of myself and used an impact driver on the bolt that holds the brake line to the lower control arm. And what that did is it just literally spun the nut cert inside of the lower control arm. Again, granted, that's completely my fault. But that being said, I probably won't be the only person to do that. So if Icon is listening and they would like a critique, I would like to see that nut cert either tack welded or maybe a piece of plate steel in there that's threaded that holds the bolt a lot better. If you guys are watching this, don't make the mistake I did. Just torque that thing to spec and you won't have any problems. And the second issue I had was with the sway bar links. So with the Icon kit, they actually reused the rear sway bar links in the front because they're a little bit longer. So after you move those to the front, what I noticed was that the sway bar links especially on the driver's side, were a little more of an angle than I was really comfortable with. The passenger side lined up pretty well, but what that did is it caused a little bit of stress on the base of the tie rod end coming out of the sway bar link. So over time that wore a little bit and it allowed the nut to loosen up and actually fall off out on the trail. So the way that I realized that is the sway bar would not reconnect. So after I figured that out, I had to go back and basically re-tap, put a die on the threads, fix the threads, and then go get a lock nut and lock washer to try to hold that together, more firmly. But what I would like to see is I'd like to see Icon offer better sway bar end link package. So I understand that they wanted to reuse the rears to keep the cost down. I think that's great, but me personally, I would like to have a better sway bar end link. So if you're listening, Icon, I would be glad to buy a set of really nice sway bar end links for the front of this thing. But there again, that's just me being picky. And I did talk to Icon about this and asked them if they had this issue with everybody, and they said no. So it very well could be an issue with my track bar adjustment or something that could pull the axle back in a little bit and split the difference between the driver and the passenger side. I don't know. I will probably revisit that sometime in the near future just to see what the feedback is from this video and from Icon and go from there. But again, really minor issue. And overall, I'm extremely happy with this lift. So if anybody I've talked to has asked about a recommendation, this is absolutely the lift I'd recommend. The price point is great. You get a nice rigid lower control arm that puts the axle back where it needs to be. The installation is super easy, and you get a great set of high performance shocks that ride great on the street and off-road. So if you guys are looking for a lift kit, I would highly recommend the 2.5 inch kit from Icon Vehicle Dynamics. Make sure you spend the extra money and spring for the Stage 2 kit. The lower control arms are absolutely worth it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see some more like this, please click that subscribe button. And if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a thumbs up anyway, and then tell me what you didn't like. So anyway, thanks for watching.